Alrighty, we are live in Fort Collins, and today we've got my partner agent Connor Martin on the horn with us. We're going to talk some things today that he has some good intimate familiarity with, as well as just an open conversation. Because I think, there's, of course, it's fun to hear maybe my opinions, born and raised here in Fort Collins, but I would say Connor brings a good alternative perspective from somebody who mountain bikes, because we're going to be talking about some mountain bike BMX type parks in Fort Collins. Water rights, because, his mentor is very familiar with those. And so just kind of a conversation about where things are going, what things are going on. Now, we did not have a city council meeting last week. It was actually just an executive session. They are discussing their 3 annual reviews of city employees that are pretty big, and so there was no city council to review and no developments that we're really going to be considering. But we're going to be talking about things that are happening in Fort Collins. There's quite a bit of things that are going on over the next few weeks. We are in our season, and my dad actually yesterday we were out at Warren Park, which Warren Park, if you didn't know, has a great little zip line. So my kids absolutely love playing on that thing, and we were there for about an hour playing. My dad lives nearby, so he walked over, and we were talking about how, there's always every year there's a different timeline between Thanksgiving and Christmas, and this is one of the shorter timelines between Thanksgiving and Christmas. So it's going to feel like Christmas is going to sprint up on us, because Thanksgiving was at the very, very end of November. So we only have, I think if I remember right, 26 days from Thanksgiving until Christmas. So it's coming up on us quick. There are a lot of things going on this week. My wife and I are going to be going to the Nutcracker on December 7th at the Lincoln Center. It was kind of funny. We were having a board game night with some friends, and they were discussing, and they're, one of my friends, he goes, "No, I am not cultured enough to go to plays, let alone a ballet, when they're not even talking." And I was like, oh God, I forgot that they don't talk in the Nutcracker. So really concerned about how I fared during this, but it should be fun and lots of other activities. So we are going to dive in with one of the things that I actually remember texting Connor's mentor about last August 2023, when City of Fort Collins was considering some substantial rate increases and for their water and development fees. And it ultimately actually decreased from $64,000 per acre foot to $62,800 per acre foot. But Fort Collins Loveland Water District, which I'm going to share this screen with everybody, Connor. It is actually, so we have a lot of, not a lot, we have different water districts within Fort Collins. So the City of Fort Collins Water District actually only services, I think, like 30 some odd thousand households, whereas there's, I think, 60,000 some odd households in Fort Collins. So there's different water districts, whether you're on the north side, Elko, south side, Fort Collins, Loveland Water District, and there's other small ones kind of mixed interwoven in between there. But I'm going to share this. That kind of shows the water districts in Fort Collins. So you got the East Larimer County, that's Elko, Fort Collins Loveland Water District. That's what we're going to be talking about right now. Fort Collins, City of Fort Collins Utilities, Sunset Water District. I'm not sure. Do you know anything about that one, Connor?
I actually do not know as much about that side as I do on just the main Fort Collins, because my mentor mainly owns water in the Fort Collins district versus the Elko or the Loveland Fort Collins Water District. So those areas are a little less familiar to me on that side, but the Fort Collins Loveland Water District is something I've kept a little bit closer eye on. And I've started to look more into the Elko area, because we obviously had some issues out in the Wellington area and some of those spots where they had some moratoriums on the water. And really the north side and the south side are really the only areas we have left to build in the Fort Collins area. So those are kind of the huge topic points for water right now, and really where are they going to be sourcing it from, and what kind of costs are going to be coming associated with that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I wouldn't pay any attention to that water district either. It looks like it's servicing, almost nothing. But yeah, West Fort Collins Water District as well. But clearly there's different water districts. They're each basically owned and operated. they've got their own boards, all that kind of stuff. They interwork with each other, of course, because there's developments at play, who's going to be servicing what district. And but one of the biggest things that a developer needs is water. So and like you said, actually, I was just chat GPTing if Severance, Colorado, do you know if Severance, Colorado still has a building moratorium in place?
I thought they got rid of that a couple months ago on that side, but it literally changes on a month-to-month basis. It always seems like, so every couple of months, it always seems like it comes up in a news article, and they're always questioning if they have to do that so that they have a chance to even go out and buy more water, or where are they actually going to source that from, because it's just getting harder and harder with the ditch companies and the water lines that are in the ground. The infrastructure is already in, but being able to manipulate between ditches and the water lines that go throughout the entire area of Fort Collins, Severance, and just northern Colorado, it's a really complicated system. And, it just takes a lot of communication with the different water districts and ditch districts to be able to actually even bring water to these different areas. So it just depends on how friendly everybody's being in that month and if things can actually work through or not on that side.
Yeah, it looks like it actually just was lifted just in November. There was an article in Biz West, but to your point, it's still, there is the developer, like everyone has to play nice, find water, agree to the water, source it. So you're spot on. But I thought this was really kind of an eye-opening article from the Colorado, and that just was released on November 26th, that water rates are going up 30% for residents in Fort Collins Loveland Water District. I'm gonna actually sign on to my. I want to see something, but I mean 30% is pretty significant. I mean, City of Fort Collins is going up 7% for their utility rates. Unfortunately, I'm in the Fort Collins Loveland Water District, so my utility bill next year is going to be going up by quite a bit during the summer months, which kind of gets me to thinking, like, where can I zero-scape? Like, where can I remove some sod? Because I'm like, gee whiz, that's significant. And I'm going to show everybody. I'm going to do a screenshot real quick, but I mean, what do you think about that? What impacts do you think that has on individuals? And it also has a potential impact on developers, because it's going to increase the per acre foot charge of $120,000 that Fort Collins Loveland Water District is charging, and they're going to increase anywhere between 19 to 31%. They're going to be increasing 19 to 31% next year. So, I mean, what do you think that could do?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to put a little bit of a halt on new builds over in that area. I mean, that's just like we saw in Severance and some of those the northern side of Colorado with Elko Water. They were struggling to figure out actually how to even get these new neighborhoods in. And, that's been one of the biggest things, is there's still a lot of development land that is over on that south side of Fort Collins, in that area of northern Colorado, that they service quite a bit of homes over there. And so they really got to look into the fact of how many more homes can they actually service with the water and water lines that they have out there. And what it means is it's just going to be a little bit more costly for homes, and it's not going to be getting, more than likely what's going to happen. And I mean, we've seen it even in a lot of the new builds up in Hanson Farms, for example. Basements used to be a huge thing out here. Basements were a big factor for a lot of homes. And now we're starting to see a lot of these new builds going away from putting basements in, because the cost is just getting so much more expensive. So in my opinion, I think we'll see a little bit of a decrease in the square footage of new build homes, is kind of has been the trend in that area. And it's just that builders are having to save money, and they're having to skimp in certain different ways to be able to afford this and make it still a profitable situation for them. And that's been, an issue even on the north side. There's been some properties that I've been watching closely over there that have been in development for 5-6 years now. And one of the biggest factors is them waiting for the ability to even get water for their neighborhoods. And then obviously you got to fight factors with Fort Collins approving things. And so the process to get new builds put in is going to take a little bit more time for these developers to be able to actually work into it. And it's just going to make things just a little bit more expensive for everyone, from pre-existing homes to new builds. And, we already know that Northern Colorado is getting a little more expensive already on that side, as we've seen through the last few years. Obviously, we had our crazy time during 2022, 2023, 2021, 2022, when things were really bumping and everything was going for a lot more expensive. We've kind of seen a little bit of a decrease since then. But I think just on the new build side, we're going to see a little bit of an increase on price points over there, or we're going to see them go in and take away certain features and items that have been in homes previously that they're not going to have going into new homes these days. And we'll probably see a little bit more of actual homes where they're going to want to jam more homes onto one, on a certain acreage and stuff, as long as Fort Collins is still into that, keeping things as high density as possible, because that then makes it more affordable for these builders to be able to make back a decent profit, to where it makes it actually a feasible thing for them to sit here and say, well, why would we build here in Northern Colorado versus going, over to Southern Colorado where they have water, or, taking their developments elsewhere. So that's probably where my biggest concern.
Southern Colorado with water. There's no water in Southern Colorado. Maybe the Western Slope.
Yeah, Western Slope. I guess that's a better way to put it. Otherwise, everybody else is on wells.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think you're spot on. It's just, it gets expensive, cost of labor, materials. I mean, it's definitely, it's not going to, the cost, unless something dramatic happens, like 3D printing becomes just, very readily available on job sites, and technology, has some depreciation of costs. Otherwise, inflation of building is just going to continue. But I did a little bit of math here. So the screenshot you're looking at here was my last 12 months of City of Fort Collins, Loveland, Fort Collins, Loveland Water District, which is $1,031.38 for the year. Pretty heavy in, the August, what is that? Let's see here. My October, September, and August bills, which essentially is the water that I used in July, August, and September. So our 3 warmest months, to keep that grass green, baby, which I'm sure a lot of people don't love to hear. But a 30% increase would pump that up, about $300 to $1,340 annually. So $300 annual increase for the Fort Collins Loveland Water District, which I think's, nothing to slouch at. We are on a third of an acre, so a little bit bigger of a lot than most. So I would have to imagine most are kind of more on that fifth of an acre, especially if you're in a new build, like you said, smaller lots, more house on the lot, just because they've got to cram them in there. The majority of your water, as you can see here, is coming from watering your sod. Your in-home use is pretty minimal. We're talking, what is that, 20, 25, 24, 24. And I've got a family of 5, so I mean, I think that's an extra $6 to, $8 a month when you're just talking internal use of water. When you're going to xeriscape, that's when you start to see those heavy months. So for the utility rate users, I think it's not going to be fun. It's not the end of the world. It's not going to be fun, though, for sure. I think you're right on, though. Development is going to have some things that are going to be, again, I don't know. Maybe I'm just like a total optimist, and it's stupid of me, but I feel like they are going to figure out technology. Like they've got the shitty shower heads and the low flow toilets, and those are such small, impacts to water. At least from what I've seen, I feel like that's just like such a low impact on water usage. Where the real, use of savings is going to be is on that landscape and agriculture and, not flood irrigation and things of that nature. So those are the technologies that I think, when there's enough money at stake and developers have enough incentive to figure out new technologies, they will come up with things, because $120,000 per acre foot is starting to become seemingly unfeasible.
And one of the big things that I'm seeing, at least on the new neighborhoods, I mean, all around northern Colorado, which I think is a big technology change from back when your house was built, when my house was built, is non-potable water is becoming more usable. Cities are actually considering that more of a usable source of water for actually watering the landscape because I'm a turf management guy. I've ran golf courses for a long time before I ever got into real estate. So I am sadly one of those guys that still enjoys grass and enjoys trees and enjoys shrubs and bushes and stuff like that. And so my hopes is that just like golf courses, that we're going to start pushing to have more non-potable water sources in these neighborhoods. Maybe even start being able to, if you have a neighborhood that's backed up to you, that's a brand new neighborhood, maybe your neighborhood would even consider going in and tapping off of that non-potable water and bringing it into old existing neighborhoods. And so I can kind of see that maybe transforming over the next 20 some years. And then hopefully with Northern Colorado, just like they've been talking for 30 years, is bringing in more reservoirs, bringing in more retention ponds so that we can actually be able to store more water. Because I think that's where one of our biggest issues is we just don't have the ability to store the water that we need. Over by Carter Lake, up in the Loveland area, they're already starting to put a lot of development into bringing in a new reservoir up in that area as well, so that we can hopefully be able to create a little bit cheaper water, or at least be able to continue to bring in more development here that is more user friendly, and that we're not always just concerned about, well, are they going to shut down all the car washes because we're not going to be able to wash our cars because that's a waste of water, even more than it is for doing your turf on that side. So there's different ways that they're trying to handle it and work through it. But I know that it's a challenge, and it's going to take a whole community to be able to make this work out correctly.
Yeah, that's some great insights. All right, shifting gears, but still on the housing side of things, rental registration. There is they're calling it the Fort Collins first rental registration rodeo, and it is going to be on December 7th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Fort Collins Senior Center. And if you don't know what this is, they passed an ordinance that is going to require all residential rental units. I don't believe commercial or short-term rentals are a part of this. One, because short-term rentals already have to be inspected and all that kind of stuff. So they're kind of on their own deal. And I don't believe commercial is part of this as well. I'm 95% positive on that. But all residential rental units within the city of Fort Collins are going to have to register. It's going to be $37 base fee for that unit on an annual basis, and then $10 per unit on top of that. And if you own rental units, this is something to where if you're confused by it, you can go in and you can get some information from city staff to discuss. They will help you register there. But as of January 1st, and they're going to be pretty lax on it this first year. So really, if you want to push the system, technically you're supposed to get this done by January 1st of 2025. But they're going to send some love letters for the first few months of the year. And I'm guessing it won't be until January of 2026 that they actually start fining you for not having your property registered. And the theory behind this is they want to provide safe housing for tenants. They believe that there are some minimal, there are standards of habitability, that warranties of habitability that you need to abide by that some landlords don't. Connor and I actually have a pretty decent background in rentals. We've seen a lot of different rentals in our time. We know good rentals, we know bad rentals, and in a place like Fort Collins, or probably not necessarily. I don't necessarily think Fort Collins, but I mean maybe. But in bigger cities where maybe housing is super, super crunched and people kill for rentals and they wouldn't, leave that place if their life depended on it. And landlords take advantage of that by not putting any maintenance in, having threats. This, I don't think happens in Fort Collins per se, but definitely people, if they have a low rent, don't feel like maybe they can go talk to their landlord about issues. And this will provide a safe kind of communication ability to say, hey, my property has broken windows in it and they're not safe. And I've talked with my landlord a couple of times. Please, can we get this addressed? there's going to be portals, and that rental will be registered and inspected, and that landlord, I'm sure, will get slapped on the wrist. More oversight, more expense. So that $37 for the base fee and then $10 per unit on top of that, I'm guessing the landlord's going to bake that into rental rate increases. Yep. So you're going to see rents increasing, I'm sure. But what are your thoughts on this, Connor? Kind of pros and cons of this rental registration?
I generally think it's a good thing on that side because, like you said, I think here in Northern Colorado, most of our rentals are pretty good here, but we do have the riffraff that are going to go out there and try and skimp as much as they possibly can on that side. And I think that just keeps people more honest on upkeeping the home and making sure that it's a livable space. I have been in plenty of rentals out there that you're just kind of sitting there and questioning a little bit and saying, man, I'm not sure how people make it in this home or how it actually works. I mean, one of the biggest ones that I always saw, especially because we do have colder winter months here, is having correct heating systems that, as a renter, one of the biggest expenses that we deal with, at least on that side, is going to be paying for the utilities on that side. So if you have windows that are letting in a 5-mile-an-hour draft into your house, and you have electric baseboard heat in the home and stuff, and that home's having a hard time keeping a 68-degree level through our coldest months, I know that expense gets exuberant, for individuals. And the biggest part is, for the older homes on that side. I'm not so worried about homes that were built probably in the 80s and earlier, because you start seeing the double pane windows and you start seeing a little bit better technology with, full air full HVAC systems and not just doing radiant heat and some of those things. But I think it's like downtown Fort Collins is where I've seen the rough of the rough in terms of homes, because some of these homes are from the 1890s, even earlier than that. And there are homes in there that haven't been touched for 50, 60 years. Just like you said, there's been some individuals who've owned these homes for that long a time. They haven't put much effort or time into actually putting in the infrastructure into the home to keep them safe, to keep them running efficiently. And I think those are going to be the ones that are individually going to get hurt probably the most on that side. But as well, we don't want to see a bunch of slumlords out here that are just skimping by as well. So I think, there's probably going to be, in my opinion, a little too far oversight for a while on that side. But again, I think it's going to work itself out over the next couple of years between landlords and tenants, and things are going to kind of mellow out as landlords continue to get their infrastructure put in, tenants start to become a little bit happier. And I think the biggest factor that we're obviously going to see is just the increase in cost, because landlords are going to have to put a little bit more money into certain properties. So if you're going to want to live downtown, I think downtown properties are probably going to have a little bit more of an increase, and they're already kind of expensive rental wise to live in already. And so I think that's honestly where I'm going to see, the biggest impact. But everywhere else around Northern Colorado, specifically Fort Collins, I don't think we're going to see as major of an impact as I originally thought when I heard all these rental rules and regulations and licensing coming out. It made me a little fearful for a little bit, saying, okay, how far of oversight are they going to have on your home? Are they going to start going into your home every 2 months and making sure everything's okay, or what it was going to be?
I pay $10 a year. Actually, now I think it's a little bit more. I think it's $25, honestly, for each one of my LLCs, for our periodic report that we have to file that says we're still in operation. And if I've got to register my company, and if you're going to be a landlord and you're going to be running a business, you're essentially running a business. You're accepting money from individuals in exchange for the product of your house that you're renting. So you're running a business, and registering your business is probably not a bad thing. Additionally, I think also one of the parts in that article discussed was that tenants can go on to the rental registration website and see, is this rental registered? There's people, scam artists out there on Craigslist that, people get terrified about, like, is this an actual deal? And like, I've always talked with like clients that are considering renting first and then buying, I tell them, like, Craigslist is a great tool. Just kind of keep your, defense up. Don't just go into it blindly. Make sure that you're asking questions and verifying. But this would be a quick tool too, to go in, make sure, is that a rental unit? Who is the registered agent of that unit? Am I talking to that person? Or am I being scammed. So, I think there'll be some positives. I think it will take that year between 2025 to 2026 for people to fully register their units. And then, because there was kind of two parts of the ordinance that was going through. There was a rental registration and then inspections. And the inspections part was where it was going to cost, I think it was millions. Now millions are just thrown all over the place. So I don't know, but lots of money. It's going to cost a lot of money. And city council and residents of Fort Collins pushed back saying, like, no way, like this again is just going to increase the cost of rents. So let's not do that. But I think it's kind of making that way, like it says if there's any complaints, they can easily go and inspect quickly. So, time will tell. I think, like anything, we make it more dramatic than it is, and then it'll just become a way of life. So the reality is it's part of doing business now, and it's law. So just got to figure it out.
Now, one question I have for you, Patrick, on that, just because you're a landlord, you run rental properties on that side. I've been on the opposite end of the management side and all that as well. As a landlord, are you concerned? Because, one of my biggest things is obviously the deposits that you have that are required for a landlord, saying, hey, if someone ends up breaking stuff, having issues on the home or anything like that, is there enough deposit plus being able to get your money back if you had a bad renter in there? And, do you see any major impacts on that, because of that? Obviously, you have the option to choose your renters as well to a certain regard, but do you have any fears on your own end for, just the cost of maintaining a property at that point when it comes to being just a little bit more regulated?
Not necessarily. We run our property. We do interior inspections on our own units already. We want to make sure that we're keeping them up to date. Don't get me wrong, some of them are old for sure. But we are putting money into security, electrical, plumbing, all that kind of stuff as is. These are, while they're not, you get to depreciate these assets on your tax return, but they're appreciating in value. But they are depreciating as far as like, you need to keep them up and replace siding and make repairs, and it's not cheap. It is very expensive, and I think you're already seeing rents increase because some of these costs are increasing, and I don't believe being a landlord has become easier in the state of Colorado over the last decade. It's been more rules, regulations, restrictions, tenant-friendly rules. Nothing that doesn't allow me to conduct my business or rentals efficiently and effectively. But I will say, I wouldn't be surprised if our rental inventory decreases because of frustrated older landlords that, to your point, have owned them for 30 to 50 years and haven't put the money into them. And rather than have to, abide by these rules and all of the new rules that are in place over the last few years, just offload them, which is not a good thing for the rental market. There is already a contracted supply, and if you contract it even further with as much demand as there is, it's a simple economic calculation that rent prices are going to go up. So time will tell. My theory is there's this humongous delta already between mortgages and rent rates, and mortgages aren't probably going to be coming down. It's the rent rates are going to be increasing to make that delta smaller and more historically normalized. But right now it's a pretty big gap. So, the theory that I have in this world right now is that rents are going to continue to increase pretty substantially over the coming years.
Okay.
Oh man, I did hang cleans yesterday for the first time, and I'm starting to get older, I guess, and my freaking back, man. And anyways.
That's what the elliptical's for.
What?
That's what the elliptical's for. You're going to have to go from weights to the elliptical at some point.
I know. I'll have a headband on, sweatbands, and I'll have my Walkman.
Yeah, there we go.
All right. There are a couple other things I want to talk with you about before we jump into things that you can do this upcoming weekend. But Hugh Stadium, 164 acres. There's going to be what is that? Community conference. I can't remember what it's called, but anyways, there's going to be a convening of about 30 randomly selected citizens of Fort Collins that come together on a heavy weekend or 4 days to put their heads together and to come up with ideas of what should happen at Hughes Stadium. And some ideas are, actually, I just talked with a friend of mine she works out at the Raptor facility off of Vine. And the Raptor, and then there was like two other kind of natural, or birds of prey or bird stuff, avian deals that want to come together and have a facility there. That's one group. There's a group that wants it to remain as is, disc golf course, open. There's another group that wants it to basically be revitalized into natural area. But one of the big groups that has money behind it, in fact, $70,000 of City Fort Collins is doing a feasibility study right now on a bike park at Hughes Stadium, which would take up about 50 to 70 acres or so in that area. And we as a team went downhill mountain bike riding in Breckenridge and had a blast. I know you absolutely love it. We got destroyed. But what are your kind of thoughts about what Hughes Stadium should do, and should there be a bike park there? For information purposes, there are 8 different bike parks along the Front Range. Colorado has more than 20 bike parks with 8 along the Front Range, but not anything in Fort Collins. I think the closest bike park that we have is Berthoud. Is that right?
So they have a BMX track over by Twin Silo Parks actually as well. So I've gone up there and ridden that BMX track up there, but I wouldn't consider it a bike park like Berthoud. So I've also ridden Berthoud as well. And I'll tell you, Berthoud had done a fantastic job in terms of not just making it for the competitive side of BMX where there's bigger jumps, it's more race oriented. This one's more in Berthoud, a family friendly deal where you can go out there. They have different little small jumps for kids. It's a place you can go out and take your family, bring out the truck, have lunch, be able to hang out. Where the Fort Collins one up by Twin Silos, it's a little bit more of a tougher one. It's not kid friendly as much. It's probably more for upper middle school to high school kids is what I've seen, at least out there when I've ridden out there. And so the Berthoud one is more friendly, where even a kid on a Strider, which, Striders are becoming huge out here. And I mean, all across America at this point, even a kid on a Strider bike could go out to the Berthoud one and just have a blast for hours, wear them out, bring them home. They'll be ready to nap for the rest of the day. So, in my personal opinion, I think Fort Collins needs to bring stuff like that into Fort Collins so that it's more family friendly for people to go out there and just get to hang out. Even adults. I mean, I'm 30 years old and I still absolutely love going out and doing that stuff. I do a lot of downhill mountain biking as well, but it becomes a challenge because it's just not as easy to go out and do. I'm not much of an uphill rider. I don't like to exercise that much, but going downhill is the fun part. And so a lot of my friends would go up to Horsetooth. We would go together as a group. You'd have 4 guys and one guy would run the truck, and we'd go drop our bikes off at the top of Horsetooth and then ride back down. And that's where we had our enjoyment and our fun. But to be able to just go take your bike out, go ride down some of the pass in Fort Collins to get over to that far west side of Fort Collins where Hughes Stadium is at, I think that would play a huge factor on getting kids outdoors more versus them sitting inside playing video games or playing in the backyard. It just creates a new environment for people to actually go out and enjoy. Like you said, we already have the disc golf out there as well, which I've gone out and played numerous times. And so to make that a park where, one, it's still natural, I think that's really important to have as well. But being able to incorporate, activities like a natural activity park, I think would be a huge benefit for Fort Collins and individuals in that area. And it's just a complete blast to be able to have that. So instead of using that for residential use, I think it's really well worth, instead of having more walking paths, which I think we have more than enough walking paths around Fort Collins, in my opinion, to bring a diversity in there of different sport activities, I think is well needed for Fort Collins. And I think would be a really good resource for the area and for the longevity of, bringing families into this area and having enjoyment.
Well, and additionally, what's interesting too in the article that I read and watching City Council, renaturalizing the property would actually cost millions of dollars because it's basically like a barren wasteland there's concrete. I mean, it was a stadium that has a lot of different not natural aspects to it. So it would cost a lot of money to do that. And then there's some and this is an opinion, an op-ed editorial. The city has 52 natural areas with over 36,000 acres. And then Larimer County has another 13 natural areas with another 33,000 on top of many others in the region, state, national, all that kind of parks and open areas. So we have, to your point, tons of that infrastructure in place. And I, because of the law that was passed, or I should say what City of Fort Collins residents voted on, it will remain an open and natural area, but the definition of what that is, be a bike park or whatever, a bird sanctuary, there won't be any housing there. That is certain. It's only going to have, a certain amount of optionality behind it. But, I can take, now I have a road bike, so I'd have to either buy a mountain bike or whatever. But, if I got that, I could take my bike from Southeast Fort Collins, take the Fossil Creek Trail all the way to the west side of town to Spring Canyon Park. And just north of that is Hugh Stadium. So, I mean, Fort Collins already has this very interconnected biking, network. And so I think, having this on that west side of town where, there already are a ton of trails that lead over there, Spring Creek Trail, Fossil Creek Trail. That's probably the two that are most connected to the west side, would be pretty cool. So it'd be a huge asset to Fort Collins. I have not ridden on the berthed one. I think it would be a blast with the kids to go there. So maybe I'll have to check that out. But we'll know soon enough. I believe City of Fort Collins, their city council's goal is to have a clear path forward of what to do with Hugh Stadium by the end of Q1 in 2025. So we should know here soon enough. Now, last thing before we jump into things that you can do this upcoming week or weeks is, Connor, I know I was driving up to Steamboat on one of our team events and some blur of a motorcycle came speeding by me. And I was just like, please, God, watch over Connor, because I was like, you are a madman. But City of Fort Collins has now, as of the 25th of November, operationalized and are fully operational. And I saw it on, I believe it was Friday night. I was looking ahead of me. It was green lights, and it's still a flash happened. And I was like, what happened? I was like, they didn't run a red light. Oh, they were speeding, and they must be going more than 5 miles or 10 miles an hour. 11 miles an hour or more above the speed limit, because now we have speeding cameras at those 6 intersections. College and Drake comes on live December 11th, so you still have 9 days to speed through that intersection. But otherwise, there's 19 corridors or throughout Fort Collins that can now capture your speed.
Yep.
And it's going to generate, I think, like $2 to $4 million annually, which does have to, by law, go back into specific street safety, police safety protocols. But the big push for this in Fort Collins and the City of Fort Collins Police is that we've had some pretty dramatic increases on fatalities, road, bicyclists, motorcyclists. There was one number that said bike and motorcycle crashes that caused serious injury or death were up 45% in 2023. We also show that crashes more than doubled in Fort Collins since 2019, going from 277 to 648. So we have, as a city and a council, a priority called Vision Zero that the goal is to have 0 deaths, fatalities, or serious injuries on our roadways. And this is where they believe, and they had data to back this up at the city council meetings to show when someone's going a specific amount over the speed limit is when these serious fatalities and crashes and accidents happen. So, Fort Collins is working towards that, but you're going to see flashes going off all over the place because, I mean, I think people go over 11 miles per hour, especially when they're trying to beat that red light or yellow light and avoid that red light ticket. I mean, it'll be interesting to see.
No, it's gotten definitely crazy over the last few years. I mean, I'm a part of quite a few biker groups, like on Facebook and stuff, and on a weekly basis, we're seeing 2 to 3 fatalities a week on motorcycle pages, and that's in Fort Collins in northern Colorado. And it's really sad. It's depressing on that side, but the majority of the time is, it's a bunch of young guys and gals out there that are excessively speeding in the wrong places at the wrong time, and going through those light and intersections is one of the most dangerous. I mean, even for me, I've been riding for 20 plus years at this point, and even when I'm driving in my car at night or even during the daytime and you see a motorcycle off in the distance or even a car off in the distance, it's so hard to judge someone. Instead of them going 45 and they're doing 55, it's hard to judge a left-hand turn. And so you might think, oh, I got plenty of time, but that person will come up on you in a matter of seconds, and then there's nothing you can do at that point, and then it just becomes a big issue. I think Fort Collins has done a great job in terms of keeping it realistic and saying, hey, some of us tend not to maybe watch our speed very well, so having that buffer range of, I think you said 11 miles an hour or a little bit less than that, allows people to be able to have some flexibility, knowing that they don't have to keep right at 45 miles an hour. They can have some fluctuation in between, but it keeps people a little bit safer and reminds everybody like, hey, this is an important deal. We don't want to continue to take our resources, our police officers, our firefighters, our ambulances to go to these crashes that could easily be been prevented if we just took our time and slowed down a little bit. I was a dumb guy back in the day from high school when I first got my motorcycle's license and my driver's license. And I have learned over the time frame that taking your time and enjoying the drive versus trying to speed around is going to make life a lot better. And you just have so much more avoidance on getting into accidents and crashes and creating fatalities that don't really need to happen at the end of the day. So I think it just puts it in the forefront of everybody's mind of saying, hey, take your time, slow down, and allow everybody to be able to make it home safely at the end of the day, which is the most important, because we all have families we got to get back to. And I think that's something we really need to see, and something that Fort Collins and I think in general northern Colorado needs to put a little more effort into, because even on I-25, I've done dumb stuff like you said, going up to Steamboat XYZ. There's times where you get a little too rambunctious and you go out to car meets, you go out and do those things, you go. And I don't know if you've ever ridden down College on a Friday night in the summertime. You'll see big groups of trucks and high school students ripping down through the area. You'll see motorcycle groups doing that. And I think that'll just kind of limit the factor of people actually getting injured during accidents. And hopefully, like you said, I don't know if we'll ever hit net zero in terms of accidents, but fatal accidents, if we could just decrease them by a couple each year and eventually do that, I think people overall will be a lot happier. And I think they've been reasonable with the ticket prices, and then the fact that it gets to, if you're going 25 miles and over is what I saw in the article as well, that then becomes a misdemeanor. And generally no one needs to be doing 25 miles an hour over the speed limit on College and on some of these major intersections where you have all walks of life, from people who are older to younger. That's a hard group to work with, because there's people that are going to be driving a 35 and a 45, and then you're going to have someone doing 60 in a 45. And so those numbers don't mix very well. And I think it personally just causes a lot of issues. It causes a lot of anger and stress. And so if we can kind of limit that, road rage will hopefully go down. People will start realizing that we're all just trying to make it home at the end of the day. And there's other places to go out and enjoy speed, like going to racetracks around here. IMI has a motorcycle racetrack out there that you can go play on during the summer. And there's other places that you can go and have your fun without doing it on the streets where you're affecting others.
Well, to your point, I think probably without having specific data to back this, but anecdotally, I'd have to imagine the majority of those speeding would be maybe younger folks, and where that speeding ticket, and having a monetary value behind it might hit them a little bit harder than maybe an older generation that might be able to write the check and not care about it too much. I'm sure there's plenty of folks that are older that are speeding, but like on college, what was it? Shields and Prospect. They had estimated 16,000 people would have gotten tickets just in 1 month because of how many people were going more than 11 miles per hour above the speed limit at that single intersection in 1 month. Yep. And that's kind of like Collegeville, USA area. So I would have to imagine that when those individuals or mom and dad get a ticket mailed home to them saying your son or daughter went XYZ and here's a ticket for $75, they're probably not going to be super happy and maybe take that out of their spending money or lunch money, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, I don't see it as a money grab. I think it's going to be a humongous revenue generator for them, but they do have it. I don't have anything to show it, but they do have it, kind of teetered off, plateaued, and then actually decreasing because they do believe that human behavior will change based off of these. So they hope, the hope is that it ultimately generates $0, but like to your point, it's not going to. But the hope is that it really is only a short time period where it generates this type of income and then it teeters off because people's behaviors change. So I guess, time will tell, but if you are speeding, there are those 6 intersections. We showed them last time. I don't have anything. Maybe I do. Hold on, let me see.
Yeah, while you find that really quick, one of the biggest examples that I got to learn personally when going down to Denver for a doctor checkup on that side is we have OHV lanes that go from now northern Colorado down to Denver on that side. We've all seen them. Right now, the tolls are waived right now, but they do have cameras set up on the I-25 for the OHV lanes. And they are very specific now on making sure people aren't going to be passing over those double white lines into the OHV lane, which, sadly, I was guilty of. And it made me realize, like, hey, instead of, speeding up and trying to use that extra lane, which you shouldn't be, actually go out there and just, go in at the right times. And I think there's more people out there that are going to actually follow the laws and rules because, yeah, it's expensive, $60, if I was going to be doing that every week, ain't going to be worth the time that I'm saving trying to cross over a lane that I shouldn't be. And so I think that should hopefully kind of follow suit to that and just, again, make everybody a little bit safer and create just a little bit easier of a traffic flow to where we don't have everybody driving ridiculous speeds and blocking traffic up because we decided that we wanted to make a quick move and get into an accident.
Yep. Yeah, no, agreed. Here are the speed corridors. So this is where we have 4 Jeep speed vehicles and then 2 AVIS systems, automated vehicle information systems, I believe is what it stands for, that can be posted up on any one of these roads at any time during the day and get you and catch you going 11 miles per hour or more. And then here are the intersections, Mulberry and Shields. Let's see here, Shields and Shields and Harmony, Harmony and Timberline, Drake and LeMay, and Drake and College. And this is the one that's going to come live December 11th. So, if you at any time are speeding, on one of these roadways, it's very likely, and I just saw one kind of in a weird location that I had never seen before. But again, our new normal will be to see Jeeps parked along roads here. AVIS systems, which I haven't seen an AVIS system yet. If you are watching this video and you've seen an AVIS system, which I believe, I'll try to look it up while we're doing we're kind of wrapping up on things to do. If you've seen an AVIS system, tell me where you saw it and kind of what it looks like. So I just would be super interesting to know what that looks like. But what do you think, Connor? Do you think it's going to be a successful program for the city of Fort Collins?
I think so. It's going to be better than the red light, changes on that side. I think speeding is more of a factor than anything else in Fort Collins on that side. I think that's just going to make a big game changer, especially for the younger individuals who are going to have to get that ticket in the mail. Their parents find it on that side and they say, oh, look at this. You got a ticket for going 12, 13 miles over the speed limit. I think it's gonna create the younger generation, just like us guys. I mean, shoot, when I first got my driver's license, speed didn't really factor into my mindset back in the day on that side. And, as you get older, I just turned 30. My insurance finally went down. So I'm loving that on that side. But, a lot of the younger guys out there and stuff, I know we're a little more rambunctious, even the gals on that end too and stuff. And so I think that's going to create a little bit better of a dynamic for us to be able to keep speeds a little bit slower, keep the traffic moving in the correct way. And at the end of the day, we're all going to get home a little bit quicker just because everybody's paying a little bit more attention than we used to.
Yeah. All right. Well, I don't have anything to pull up, but I agree. I think it'll be something where people are going to be annoyed getting those tickets, but ultimately let's kind of look at the bigger picture and hopefully slow it down a little bit.
Yep.
All right. So some things that you can do. We will wrap up today. Connor, it's been great to have you on. Honestly, it's a good conversation. Some insights that I don't necessarily have or bring. Opinions are what are nice about this, to hear what he's got going on. And maybe we have you on tomorrow when we talk about our Fort Collins market update at 2:30 p.m. tomorrow. So if you are looking for a real estate market update tomorrow, 2:30 p.m. live, we will go through all of the data. But some things that you can do over the coming weeks. If you want to go take a picture with Santa at the Foothills Mall, pretty much every day up until December 24th, 6 to 8 p.m. There is going to be a all choral holiday concert December 3rd at the Colorado State University School of Arts on Remington Street. It is going to be $5 for youth, $13 for seniors, 7:30 to 9:30. That is tomorrow. A Maker's Mark, December 7th, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Baldwin Hardwoods. It was super cute. I didn't send this to you, Connor. I sent it to Caleb, but my kiddos, they're making some rubber band bracelets, and they wanted to sit out and sell. It was pretty cute. Let me pull up this video because I was obviously, I love entrepreneurship. I love business. And here, let's see if you can see it. Oh, man, it's just too cute. Oh, but anyways, there is a Maker's Mark on December 7th. Complimentary carriage rides. I didn't know they did this at the Foothills Mall. Have you ever done this, Connor?
I haven't, but I've seen it quite a few times on that side. So I think it'd be well worth going and checking that out.
Yeah, November 21st to December 21st. It looks like every Saturday. Okay, so every Saturday, November basically 23rd to the 21st. First come, first serve. And you ride with some Clydesdales. So that's pretty cute. I mean, that's awesome as far as and it's free. And then additionally, there are a few other things going on. Garden of the Lights, Spring Creek, December 5th to December 29th. So go check out the Spring Creek Gardens. We went there. We go there every year for the Pumpkins on Parade. Fort Collins Holiday Gift Festival on December 8th. Again, it'll be kind of a Maker's Mark. So you can go on the 7th and the 8th if you're looking for some kind of cute stocking stuffers, Maker's Mark, support local artisans and craftsmen. And then finally, Tuba Christmas. Join 100 musicians playing traditional Christmas carols on December 10th from 2 to 3 p.m. at the Oak Street Plaza. Connor, you got anything that you guys do on an annual basis that you enjoy that people should go check out?
Yeah, so one of the ones that me and my wife go out and check out every year is Christmas Walk in the Woods. It's up in Loveland off of 1750 Savage Road. It goes from December 13th through December 31st. It's just a big Christmas light walk, just like we have in multiple areas around northern Colorado. I can't afford lights on my house just yet. I got to see, Patrick's estimate and said I can't afford that lifestyle. And so me and Lauren go out and we enjoy going and checking out some of the great neighborhoods where people have gone in and put some effort into putting out some amazing Christmas lights. And it's fun to go out and do that and just kind of tour around northern Colorado and see some of the great neighborhoods and some of the cities that really put on a great show.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I was super bummed. We're going up to the cabin this weekend, and Beaver Meadows, I called them this morning actually, and I asked if they're going to have sledding this weekend. They said no, because it's like 40 degrees up there, so they just don't have a good enough snowpack. And I'm just like, damn it. So the weather looks freaking amazing. We went to the park yesterday. It's going to be a great next 7 to 10 days.
Yep.
So enjoy the heck out of it, Connor. I appreciate you joining, man. It was great talking with you.
Of course, man. Yeah, sounds good. And we'll see you guys next week.
All right. Take care, everybody.
All right. See ya.